Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Inkylesconvo. It's great to as some people were saying, your conversations are starting to feel really like comfortable and like you've been down the pub and speaking to people. And I say that to people all the time. I'm trying to like change it so people feel like proper comfortable listening, but the fact that people feel comfortable listening and on the show, we're just like going down the right route, and it's great to hear that, and I appreciate everyone's feedback. But today's guest has had quite an adventurous career, being starting from the UK and then ended up in Canada and then back in the UK again. I'm very curious on that one. It's Murray Grindon. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good, thanks, pal. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I appreciate your time, by the way. Appreciate your time.
No, of course. Happy to be on. Like you saying, I sort of agreed with what you said. I've been listening to a couple of episodes of the podcast, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a nice chat between you and your guest, and definitely happy to be involved, man. So thank you for having me on.
No, it's honestly my pleasure. I'm curious, just before we get to your awesome career, to be honest with you, so far, did you always want to be involved in like television and even production or producing, and that sort of like the media world would be a better way of putting it, or was this something else?
Yeah, no, I think I did. I think originally when I was a kid, I had a fascination with movies and TV, and as a kid and sort of into like early teens, that only equated to being an actor or on telly, because I don't think that was like I wanted to. I definitely didn't want to be an actor or a presenter, but I was too young to understand that there was a whole industry that made those things that I was watching. So I think originally I was like, oh, I want to be on that. Yeah. And then as you get older and you find out a few more things and stuff like that, oh no, I want to make the things. I want to be in charge of that, and I don't really want to be in stuff like, because I think at school, you're sort of I don't know about you, my school didn't. I know lots of schools now have a media department, but going to school in the 90s, not everyone had a media department, so the only way to like have that outlet was like drama. And you're like just I knew sort of doing plays, I was like, I don't want to be stood on here doing Shakespeare. I'd like to be in charge of this and directing it and stuff. So I guess, I've always been interested in that side, but when I was younger, I guess I equated it to acting. But then as I got a bit older and just sort of more interested in it, I was like, this is what I want to do. And I've kind of been lucky. I've never really deviated from that, which I do always consider myself lucky. I've got younger sisters who are sort of going through uni now and thinking about their future and stuff like that, and they've got a plan or like an idea, but it's quite broad. And I've sort of always been quite lucky as in like, oh, this is what I'm going to go do. I'm going to go be in that. So pretty lucky to have always sort of wanted to be involved in that world, really.
Yeah, because you went from school, and then you got your bachelor's of television and film production and radio and TV television. That's a broad.
It was all of it, wasn't it? Yeah. yeah.
Just speak a bit about like your course and what you did.
Yeah, of course. So again, sort of talking of that, like coming of age, I remember I was at a school and it was super uni first, like you got to get your A-levels, got to go to uni, got to get your A-levels, got to go to uni, which I sort of didn't hate. But I remember I sort of went to this open day and I was like, and I found myself being like, I'm good at history, I guess. And I was like looking at history courses, and then sort of I came away and I was like, well, what am I going to do? Just be a historian. And then someone came to the university from Bournemouth. Actually, I went to Portsmouth University, but from Bournemouth, and was like, hey, we run this TV and film course and broadcasting. And then that sort of opened my eyes that there was a whole bunch of unis that did these kind of courses. And it was like, because they're not being offered at schools and colleges, it was like, almost just like, can you prove you have a passion for this? Maybe if you made a few short films in your back garden with your pals on ropey handy cams, because again, it's mid 2000s. Can you come in and we'll teach you everything? And sort of to that, the whole thing, so I sort of applied to a few, and Portsmouth was brilliant because it's sort of the first couple of years they gave you a shot at everything. They're like, right, this semester we'll do radio, this semester we'll do live broadcasting, right? You can be the camera guy, you can be an editor, you can be the producer, you can be the director, and they sort of allowed you to make your own mini production teams. And as the years went on, you sort of go like, okay, that one's not for me, but this is for me. And then by the end, sort of everyone in my class in that sort of final third year, everyone knew what they were going to be. It's like, well, you know, we had guys that were going to be just editors, guys that were going to go be the camera people, produce. And myself, I'm going to go produce and direct. And then some people were like, no, radio's for me. And it was to have that sort of broad spectrum when sort of it'd been traditional schooling was great. And so that's what, you know, it was large and wide, but then you sort of ended up honing. And so my final year, I was just purely producing and directing stuff, but partnered up with those guys that were like, well, I just want to be a cameraman editor. So you sort of found your guys and you made your team. And then, so, you know, I went into that university being like, okay, I know I like this subject. And I left with like almost a career path. Mm-hmm. And just because of how they sort of whittled that down and did it really. And it was brilliant. It was, you know, I couldn't, if I meet anyone that's got like a, sort of someone that age and be like, I'm quite interested in that, I do recommend it, because it will sort of give you a taste of everything, and you'll know what's for you and you'll know what isn't for you. You know, like, that's not me. I'm crap at that. And that's fine, because you've got the ability to, it doesn't cost you much on the marks. It doesn't cost you much on the thing. You can fail at that. There, it was sort of like a dry run at sort of the industry, and being allowed to fail at some stuff and be like, okay, well, that's not for me. I'm not a set designer. And then you leave going, oh, I'm a director producer. That's who I am. And they're like, yeah, that's where you best work. So it was brilliant. And yeah, definitely, you know, if that's an area that interests people, definitely can't recommend a course like that much. I won't necessarily say go to Portsmouth. Portsmouth was brilliant. I loved it. But there's so many other brilliant ones, you know, Bournemouth, Leeds, I think everywhere now, especially as time's gone on, has a great media department because of where we're at. So, but yeah, definitely, it was brilliant. And like I said, it helped form me. You know, I left uni like, okay, the career path is production, producer, director. Let's go off and find that work.
Yeah, I mean, to be, I totally agree with you, because as people know, like, I'll be going to uni in September. I'm a little bit 27, a little bit of an old, well, not really older, considering there's people older than me going, but classed as older student. But it's because, again, it was the same thing. I was like, well, I did sound production, and then I was like, you know what, I did well at that, and I left, and I was like, you know, I kind of fancy doing radio because I like talking. I don't, as people say, I don't shut up. Like, as my mom used to always tell me when I was younger. So I was like, well, I'd be perfect. You know, and then you get the people that say you're got a face for radio. So there's another one. Like, it's nice comments, I guess.
Well, that well, those people are lying. I wouldn't say you got a face for radio, mate. You're very good at the podcasting, but that's a bit too harsh to say you got a face for radio. Plus, also, radio these days is no longer just, look at what we're doing.
Yeah. There
is no such thing anymore, I think, as pure one form. I think you have to exist in all strats. You know, Capital Breakfast Show by Roman Kemp is live streamed. You know, it's the cameras in the room.
That's where I took it as a compliment. That's where I took it.
Oh, well, there you go. So you're like, well, face for radio.
I already knew.
I'm the host.
You knew. That's the thing.
There we go.
I was already one step
ahead of the game. Ahead of the game.
But yeah, you're totally right. You actually do. You need to be involved, especially nowadays when you get like, I don't know anybody offhand. I really should have. Well, I guess it wouldn't be fair to say anyway, but there is people that have come from social media, gotten like a couple of 100,000 followers, and now they have their own radio shows. Now they're on telly. Now they're on, you know, the biggest one would be that last year from TikTok. What's her name? Amelia somebody. I think that's her name.
The Amelia Dillenberg.
Yeah,
the one that has Chicken Shop Date.
Yeah. She came. She was like tiny. There was nothing. There was like, she was a nobody, and then she blew up on TikTok, and now she's appearing in movies and things. It's absolutely crazy how you can come from that. Yeah, it's crazy. I do think we're now going into a place where like podcasting and things like this is, chances are that media stuff will get you a job versus a
100%. 100%.
Crazy.
Well, I mean, it's in media, and particularly social media. I think, you know, I always say this, you know, when I talk, and you know, when I'm sort of explaining the media to people and sort of my side of the business, and then just in general conversation, is that, you know, we're now walking around with one of the most powerful computers that anyone's ever had in our pockets, and everyone's got it, and everyone knows how to use it. I mean, short of the car, I don't know an invention like that. Everyone knows how to drive a car. Everyone knows how to film, record, and post on an iPhone. And that in turn means that then everyone's on social media platforms. I think one of the most things that keeps popping up on a TikTok I see is like Duolingo. The online language thing has an insane TikTok because it's now part and parcel. Every company needs content, needs production, needs you can no longer, you have to do your advertising and stuff like that. But if you ignore content needs, you'll fade away. It's sort of one of the first things that you're starting to see. When I first left university, I had to go and be in production, which I loved. But now people leaving university, you could go and work for, Duolingo. You could go and work for Brewdog. You can go and work for a company and be making content and filming this entire time. It started with sports clubs. Every sports club now has like a production team of about 5 or 6 strong, easily, right the way into the championship. So and to Luton and stuff like that, and sort of the lower leagues, they still have some person dedicated to their content because it's a necessity now.
Well,
it
goes
hand in hand with everything.
Yeah, it's the same as like my very first guest, and I'll always be a huge advocate of him myself. Really nice guy, actually. Was Marcus Nash. He for Hamilton Academical Football Club, they didn't have social media at all. This wasn't even that long ago. That's the crazy thing. This was a couple of years ago. What was he with them? 2 years, something like that. But that was last May. So I mean, 2019 to 2020, someone.
Wow. So
really recently, and he went to them and said, listen, you don't have nothing like that. You don't have social media presence. It's not the best, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, I can transform it in 3 months. And if I do, I'd like to get paid and stuff like that. And he did. And now he's at, where is he? He's at Leicester City Football Club. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
And not only has Marcus in that context given himself a platform to be the go-to guy to, establish himself as a career path and stuff like that. He's now left Hamilton Accies, and that job's a permanent job there. They will never get rid of that job.
No,
like they'll never go. You'll be very hard pressed to find a company that once they've opened their eyes to content needs and sort of that side of things, that they would go, "Oh, that was a waste of time." The impact and the momentum that you see from it is instantaneous because it's how we're engaging in this world, really. And it's so crucial. Like I said, one of the biggest TikToks I've seen is a language company's TikTok, and it's their mascot on there.
Well, it's like the I don't know the name of it because I've just been told about it like 1,000 times. But there's a garage in Glasgow in Scotland that just because I know we're from Scotland.
I've heard about this. Yeah, I've heard about this one as well.
And it's got something like 50 different slushy flavors or something. And I was like, what on earth? This can't be real. And then my brother went with his current girlfriend or whatever they are, and he was like, sent me a video on Instagram. Was like, yeah, it's a legit place, like holy crap. And I was like, Jesus, and they started from pretty much TikTok. Like they invested thousands and then we're like, we're just going to go on TikTok and try and blow up, and they blew up. Right. Was it like 2 hours or something they were filled pretty much? And think about that, like, we both discussed we're both from Scotland. I probably don't sound it, but I promise you I am. But like you're in and Glasgow's hour and a half away. What would hour maybe? What would ever take you down to this garage? Like, it would have to be pure chance. But the action of social media, you'll want to go there. It's an instant thing. And again, so therefore there's a job now for someone. Now, whether or not that's someone at the garage being like, oh, I can handle this, but if they blow up, they need someone to manage it. They need someone to structure it. So in terms of like the job market, yes, there probably needs to be a bit of like Marcus, your first guest, a bit of entrepreneurship and hand holding, because we've all set up our mums on an iPad or something like that. There is a sort of bringing forward, but once you go there, the iPad never comes out of the hand. And it's the same for the businesses. That garage will never go back. It will never not, and it will
do more, and it will escalate and escalate. And then all of a sudden, this garage, which 2 years ago would just be run-of-the-mill employees, probably needs a production department, albeit a one person production department, but it's growing because of the way we're interacting with the world. And that, whether we don't whether it's you want to like it or not, the phone is sort of the access that we have to the internet is sort of here to stay, and that just means interacting and creating jobs in a different space that there wasn't totally 2 years ago.
Exactly. And as Elon Musk said, that your phone is literally your third leg now. Like, it's your phone, like it's part of you. It's everything that's on your phone represents you. When he got asked by Jack Ma, that the guy that owns Alibaba, he turned around and said, what's your opinion on the metaverse and stuff? And he said that it's already here. And he was like, well, it's been here for maybe like 10, 20 years. And Jack Ma was like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, you've got an iPhone. And he was like, yeah, I have an iPhone and a Samsung. He was like, there you go. It's just a metaverse. And you didn't look at it like that, but that's what it is.
You don't think so. The metaverse is trying to can bring us in more to, you don't realize your online persona, you have a online version of you that's way more complex than I think you think, than we tend to think of ourselves as, but it's way more rounded and close to you. So that's crossing there. And to that point, I think, speaking of Elon Musk, I think it was him that said this, or it was off the back of this conversation with Joe Rogan on one of his podcasts. And I completely believe it, is that the next stage of human evolution has sort of started, because he's obviously dying to put a chip in your head and link up with that. And he's like, you're already sort of an android. You now have instant information at the click of a button, instant content whenever you want. You and me, no longer have to worry, go, I don't know the answer to that, and then just never know. We can solve that problem in a second. And the scope of where we are, we the phone technology has and all of its needs in that world has sort of moved human, some people are arguing it's moved human evolution on. And we're already at another level. Humans aren't the same as they were. You could argue that humans in the 1920s were probably pretty similar to humans in the 1970s. Right, there was a few more things like a microwave. But the way a human deals with the world now compared to even the 80s or the 90s when I was growing up is night and day. It's completely different.
It's the same as like with me, like, for example, I'm 27 now, but 10 years ago, or 11, 12, well, about 13 years ago, right, which is not a long time.
Not a long time.
My first ever, well, I was about 16, so I guess 11, I don't know, anyway, 15, I can't do the math, probably like 11, 12 years ago. Anyway, I got one of those Nokia 6200 brick phones because there was no such thing as a touch phone. It wasn't a thing.
Yeah, no.
And then when the first touch phone came out, it was like 1,200 quid. Like, no one could afford it.
No, you couldn't.
Your parents were doing really, really well if you had it. And then all of a sudden, I think it was Samsung, it was the iPhone brought out the Apple brought out the iPhone, and then Samsung brought out the one, and prices dropped, and then all of a sudden it came. Well, everybody has a phone now. It's crazy. And to speak to the impact of the touch thing, if you look at where mobiles were going, growing up in that generation, that thing, it was all about how small it could be. Smaller. So the first phones that my parents got were bricks, and then it was smaller, and then it's smaller, and then look how cool and pocket free, and then touch screen and video came to the phone, and now big. My phone here is sort of the size of it. That's huge. My first phone was probably I had a phone probably about that size, because that was the main one. But sort of it's changed so rapidly, and like video and content is a huge part of that. It's definitely a byproduct of the technology, but sort of social media and the content that's on there is
we're interacting with, it's a big part of how we're interacting with the world in a completely different way. And, sort of come back to it. That's what's a really interesting time now for people that want to get into content creation. And it doesn't need to be, I want to do YouTube, I want to do TikTok. There's opportunities to, because so many people that weren't before are now making content, video, podcasts. 5-10 years ago, brands that would never think of having any form of in-house presence or any form of content being daily produced now have teams of people working on that. And I from my point of view, long may that continue, because I'm in production, and for the generation coming up, you're not fighting for a BBC internship, you've got options. If you go into that space, there's so many things. It's not, and to, if you like radio, it's no longer try and get a job on the BBC or Capital or Radio Clyde, and then you're sort of starting to enter hospital radio areas back in the old day. Now look at look at this is a podcast, this is going out, and it's going out on the same platform as the biggest podcast. There's so many opportunities now with tech and technology that it's definitely a different landscape when I enter the workplace, and long may it continue, because I think a lot more people, there's a lot more people that are creative, and maybe there wasn't a lot of outlets for that, and now there's tons. There's thousands, and they're full careers.
It's like we'll get into like just the way you were talking there. It's like default with NFTs. But just before we have that conversation, it's funny you said BBC and production, right? Because I know there's a guy in my class that's applying to work for the BBC. It's BBC production trainee program or something like that. He doesn't want to go to uni. He really wants to do that. And I was like, fair enough. They might take you on. And actually, he sent me a screenshot. He was like, because I push everybody in the class. I have no rights to do it. I just feel people should be. I push them to be like online content, create YouTube and stuff, because I tell them it's going to help your job. And they're like, Kyle, I don't know what you're talking about. But then he sent me a screenshot of the production thing. It was just like a brief paragraph bit, and it actually said, we're not too concerned about your qualifications. We want to know what you're doing outside and what you're involved in. He was like, Kyle, I should have listened to you. I've got no podcast, no YouTube, nothing. I'm like, mate, just start it today. But as long as it's crazy to see that something, because I predicted that years ago. I was like, it seems like this is what we're going to be. Who you are online is going to get you a job. And now the BBC are saying to get on the trainee program, you obviously need to have some form of qualifications, but they're not that concerned about it. They're more concerned with what you actually do outside of it. And how do you know social media? And it's crazy. It's probably
it's because again, the people that are bringing in are the youngest people that have the best understanding of this. So for one of the first times maybe since sort of I'm trying not to be too hyperbolic here, but since like war times or industrial times, the entrance of youth has into the workforce is such a key, it's such a big opportunity for them, because it's so important to these companies, because they have an understanding of a landscape that the CEO can't possibly do. And so therefore, they want to know, okay, so tell me how good you are, because we quite possibly know that this isn't our area of expertise. But if you can prove to me that you get this and you understand this content because it's the world that you're consuming and you're living in, you can fly up the ladder, because there's a whole, like we're talking about, there's a whole arm and divisions now. They're being populated by probably the youngest member of the workforce. And to your point, and sort of similarly with me at uni, to find that thing, you do have to go out there and you've got to try a little bit of everything. If that's where you want to go, if you want to get involved in media, it's no longer I want to do X. You can go and try it all and do it all, and the ability we've got to do this. We're two people sat on a laptop with some software that costs less than a quarter of a tank of petrol a month. And now you've got a podcast. You know what I mean? Like it's. I mean, there's obviously the work and stuff you go into it, but just sort of the accessibility of us being able to sit down today and record something that couldn't happen 3 years ago. I was about to say 2-3 years ago. Zoom wasn't even just the way you said it. Wasn't.
Like we're hundreds of miles away from each other. Yeah. I mean, a good example as well is I had a guy Will the podcast be out? It might. Anyway, a writer. His name's David Schwartz. He lives in San Francisco, so he's like over in America. He's quite high up in the writing world. I had him on, and he was literally, when it was morning for me, it was night for him. Like, it's crazy. The other way around, sorry. It was night here, it was morning for him. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, he's thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away, hours away, yet all of a sudden we can connect. To be honest with you, it blows my mind that much that when I got my first car, and again, I'm not that old. When my first car had rolling windows.
Oh, mine too.
Yeah.
Mine too. 100%.
Now, when the car I have now has electric windows, and honestly, I know it may sound like ridiculous.
No, I could.
My mind a little bit. Like,
dude.
Heated seats and everything. It's like, how does this work, man?
100%, dude. I lost my first car was a Nissan Micra. God, I love that thing. But it was, rolling windows and tape deck that I had to take out and put in my own thing. And you're right, I'm not that old. I remember I've got photo. This is how not old I am. I've got photos on that car on my Facebook and my Instagram, right? Like, it's been old enough that those platforms we were uploading photos to. But now my car it cruise control. Blows my mind.
Yeah, it's crazy that it can and
I just don't have to touch the accelerator. I don't have to do anything. I mean, I've got to steer. It's not autopilot, but it's definitely wild, and it's moving at such technology and stuff like that is moving at such a fast rate of knots that it is creating these gaps, especially for young people to dive in and be the experts, because they're the people that can adapt the best to it, because it's the world they've known for a while. When I've as someone that runs a sort of a social media production company, I've had to go and learn about TikTok. I've had to sit there and watch there and stuff like that, and I get it now, and I think it's a great platform, and I do think it's brilliant. But even at I'm 31, and even at 30, I found there was a learning process. Whereas my sisters, who are 12 years my junior, there's nothing. They just sort of open the app, could post a TikTok within a couple of bits, and it took me to me to learn the editing on it, and it took a bit. And so there's this wild crazy world that's being opened up to sort of, I believe, the youth generation, especially in that sort of the content social media spectrum, because the people that are the experts are the young population. And the older generations that are in charge at CEOs know that. Like, it's not one of those debates where you sort of have to prove your worth. Look at your friend with the BBC. Yes, okay, qualifications, and write to me why you want to be in the BBC was probably work it was when I was there. And it was a super competitive program. I didn't get on it. I ended up working on a BBC show, but I didn't get into the BBC because it was all about you work and how many days you come in and do unpaid work and pay your dues, which I wasn't against, but it was all about that. And now look at it, it's like, show me your social media. I remember actually when I was applying for jobs at uni, there was like a person that helped you formulate your CV, and they were like, go through your Twitter and your Instagram and maybe think about deleting stuff now. Like deleting stuff and for employees and stuff like that, which of course, because if you're mouthing off that you hate the company on Twitter, it's probably not a good idea, and probably still affects you to stay. But just the idea that social media, when I was applying for my first job, was a hindrance to it. Now they're like, send me your Instagram, like, let's see your TikTok handle. And it's definitely an exciting time for sure.
That's funny you should say what you just said. It's like, because you said you watched one of my shows, so you know exactly the question that's coming up then. See, everybody, like, people do watch my shows, I told you. Like, people have on my shows. That's why I respect them so much, because like they learn from my shows and they learn questions. It shows it's working anyway. The reason I asked that question is because, like I say to everybody every time, and you'll know the question that's coming up, but because it's so relevant. And there you go, you're another person that's irrelevant. It really is such a relevant thing. And well, the question goes to you then, is that, you do think, but how much do you think what you post online actually affects like getting your job and things like that, in the sense of like, obviously Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook's a little bit different because it's really only like friends. Of Instagram, you can find somebody through a hashtag and things like that. So
I mean, to that point, I guess we kind of jumped the ground. I think massively. I think I think it used to be seen as detrimental. And look, you know, I'm not sitting here like, if you just mouth off and slag off people on Twitter, don't worry, they'll go, well, hey, at least he's opinionated. No, there's obviously things to it and stuff like that. But yeah, you know, especially in the area that I'm in, I know, you know, we've employed people and sort of they go, I've done this and I've done that. And the first thing I've done is gone look for it. And that's on Twitter, that's on TikTok, that's on Facebook. I've just gone, you know, and look for it. And I want, and as an employer, I want to see it. I want to see people creating this stuff. I'd much rather, you know, not to steal the BBC's thing, but I'd much rather someone came to me and was like, look, I've not gone to uni. I've not gone to but you know, I'm obsessed with Reading Football Club. There's nothing in it for me, but I do a podcast with my mates. I go down and do some little filmings. I do some match day vloggings just because I love it. I'd much rather hire that person and see the content that they make and hire them on the back of that proof that I could find than a full CV sat in front of me with rows and rows and rows of qualifications. So 100%. I think it's so important. I do think I'm never necessarily one of those people that buys into like a brand, like making yourself a brand. This is just me, because I tend to like, I mean, everyone's not, you know, their true authentic selves on social media, because, you know, we talk about Instagram, you only post the nice things and the nice days. Everyone's not their true authentic self, but I don't believe in like building a brand. Now, if you are a photographer and you've got a photography page, that's authentically true to you and stuff. So I do want to see, I'd like authenticity on that. You know, I don't think you need to go away and, you know, if you're like, well, I'm targeting, you know, there's a job opening here, all right, I'm going to do all my content around that kind of world. You know, I worked on the Bake Off, okay, so they're hiring people on the Bake Off, all right, I'm going to film loads of cakes. I you know, is that what you do normally? No. So like I like to see authenticity in socials, but again, you know, the question you put to me is it important? I think 100%, because, you know, it's how we sort of, you know, rightly or wrongly, your social media accounts are attached to you. They are, you know, we talked about this metaverse and this sort of alter ego. It's a part of you. You know, your Instagram, your Facebook. I mean, Facebook's sort of more like, it's turning a bit more into Reddit, really. It's just a hub for content and videos and articles.
Yeah, because you can privatize it really heavily, really
right,
heavily.
Exactly. But I don't think people are using Facebook the way that they used to use it 5 years ago. When I was at university and I was using it, that was the place to post all your photos, post all your statuses, tag your friends in quiz, tag your friends in this, you know, interact heavy, you know, much more heavily on that. And I think that's because Facebook came before the iPhone, because even when I was at uni, I left uni in 2012, and I don't think I didn't get an iPhone until 2014, maybe 2013. Like, it was after uni, my first one. I think the iPhone 4 or something, I think, had come out. But I think Facebook was built for desktops. You know, it was best seen with all the different things, and that's how we interacted with it. But then everything moved online, and so I think Facebook struggled a little bit. And the reason people have walked away from it is, you know, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, these things live on a mobile and work brilliantly for a mobile, and Facebook kind of doesn't. But yeah, to come back to it, yeah, I think it's super important. My advice is be your authentic self on there. You know, don't turn them into hire me. But, you know, if you're a content creator and you're putting stuff out, then go for it, you know. And I think it's important.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Great answer, by the way. And it's consistency as well. Like, you have to, like, you know, we'll use, just because, like, I honest, we will get to you, but it's just because the things you're saying are like so interesting to me, to be honest with you. I'm sure the listeners, but it's like, so we'll just do like a quick run just before for a way to say what I'm saying. You know, you were an assistant producer at UPU TV. UPSU TV, maybe, I think. Maybe, yeah. So that was the university's
worldwide sort of worldwide, it didn't go global. Across the campus, there was a TV feed that went out and went on big screens and stuff like that. And I was sort of a producer / presenter for that. Again, just that cost me, that was extracurricular. I didn't get any credit for it. There was just, you know, do you want to make stuff that goes across the campus? Yeah. I mean, I think 4 or 5 people saw what we did, but, you know, I got to write and produce shows and do live shows and present on camera and stuff like that, and that sort of was an instant thing. I guess that was the sort of the 2011 2012 version of doing a podcast or a YouTube thing, because we weren't quite just there yet. But yeah, no, it's great. I love that.
And then you went to I have a question about the like I said, the cake thing, but we'll get to that.
Of course.
You were a runner on Sky as well. Was that like it seems to be that a lot of people go into being runners to get involved in the industry. Am I quite right in saying that one? Is that why you done it? Yeah,
exactly so. And I think, you know, when we were messaging and I was thinking about this, you know, sort of what was like my one takeaway advice and stuff like that is like, when you go into the industry, you know, no one wants to be a runner. You know, you want to be the producer or director, but that is the sort of the way in, you know, and there are loads of ways into the industry, and I can come on to them later. But yeah, so that's it. You come on and you go and be a runner, and you are just, you know, when you say you're the lowest of the low and stuff like that, you're not treated like you're in the army and you're like, you know, everyone's shouting and degrading you and stuff like that. It's just you're there to do the things that they just don't have time for. So get their lunch, make their coffees, you know, shuffle papers, printing, lot of printing and stuff like that. But it is, the whole point is just so that you're on set, and they know that too. That's why they give you these menial tasks, because then you've got the ability to, when you're shuffling papers or delivering coffees, you're getting to have a moment to sort of go, wow, what's all this, and take stuff in. Whereas when you're a assistant producer on a show, you haven't got that time. You've got to deliver the job. So it's hand in hand. It's like an entry level position, and yeah, that's why you do it, because no one wants to be, no one's career path is to be a runner. But it was some of the best fun I had as well, you know, being a runner at Sky, and then obviously onto Love Productions as well. I mean, yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and you were actually a runner on a. I usually go by people's LinkedIn because it's a lot easier than trying to memorize.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure everybody appreciates that one. But,
100%.
Now it says a warm-up act and runner for Ant and Dec's Saturday Night Takeaway.
Yeah.
You want to explain what you mean by warm-up? As soon as I seen that, I was like, I'm not forgetting to ask him about
that. No, God, yeah, that was wild. So that came about. So before I landed, so the next job after that we'll talk about was my first fully paid career role, like weekly salary. So everything up to then was sort of ad hoc day work, just trying to get opportunities where I could. The Sky one was with sort of Sky Nature in Bristol. You know, my family live in the southwest, and so I was getting bits and pieces there. And Saturday Night Takeaway was on the telly, and they did this thing called the supercomputer giveaway, where they used to take this supercomputer and take it to malls in the middle of the mall, and then they got people to come up and they got them to do funny things, and then they could win a holiday, or they could win money, or most likely an Ant and Dec lollipop, right? So and they came to Bristol and they were just looking for local crew. I put my name in, and I got there, and so my job was to get them signed up. But then, you know, you have to understand it's Sunday in the middle of a mall. You know, yes, people want a free trip to Hawaii, but we also need them to do silly things for the cameras. So they're all bravado when you sign them up and you come on in, it'll be great. But then when they start to get to the front of the line, a bit like a roller coaster, but like worse, the fear starts to come on the face. So I was sort of messing around with people at the front, trying to get them loose and stuff, just cracking a few jokes. And you know, stuff. And then the producer went, I like you, can you come on this tour to do that? But I want you a bit more front and center and like going, hey everyone, how's everyone doing? Right, let's get in and stuff like that. So I ended up sort of, my job was to get people in and still facilitate the production, but to really like rile people up and get them excited and stuff. Yeah, exactly. So we had to sort of warm them up and put on a mini show, and then and with the other runners and stuff like that, and get them really G'd up. But yeah, that was funny. It was weird, but really fun.
That's awesome, to be fair. I think it's when I was probably on holiday at some point, because there was times when I seen that and then just thinking to myself, I was like, I wonder if I probably seen you doing that. Like
maybe. I tell you what, yeah, if definitely the, you know, if you were involved in, if you ever saw the supercomputer in, I think we filmed it in, just at the end of 2012. I think that's when Saturday Night Takeaway was, because I graduated June 2012 and I was doing it sort of October to December. So if you ever saw it then, I was definitely the guy, the weirdo shouting out in these malls in like East Essex and stuff like that. And
I remember seeing that and being hearing people. So it might have been you.
Probably was me. We crossed paths and you probably went, oh my god, that guy's loud for a Sunday morning.
I was probably like, oh my god, I've just hung over.
Yeah, exactly. It was weird to be we got into these malls at like, you know, 6 a.m. and we had to be ready to go at 10, and you know, the bleary-eyed people like, you know, especially if there was like a Mac at McDonald's or like a Burger King there was definitely like a hungover contingent that come in and go, what is going on? But yeah, a lot of fun.
But and then you were on Love Productions as a runner,
yes,
a junior researcher and a researcher. And the runner you were on was and the reason why I waited for this question was actually the Great British Bake Off.
It was,
So my just before we get into that, the question I had was that as we're just following on from what we were speaking about earlier, as well as that, if you are wanting to be involved in something like this and you were to post like you're saying, you spent, well, for example, it's Monday today, and say like a week today, so next Monday you knew you were going to apply for a job or an interview, and you just start all of a sudden posting cakes and talking about cakes, they're going to be like, wait a minute, why did you start this a week ago and not 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago? It does come to that as well. Like, you actually can't just be saying, as I said to my mate, like I was saying to you earlier, I did say to him, they might ask you that, why did you start just on the day you said you were going to submit your application, then you started? And I don't know, like, there's something funny here, you know what I mean? It's a weird one, but yeah, it does come down to that as well, that you have to keep everything authentic, because eventually
100%.
Yeah, people are going to find out who you are online. It's just not who you are. Like, it's going to come out. It comes out every single time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so exactly. And like, obviously, this was before having a social presence, but I truly believe that, you know, I wasn't hired because on the Bake Off. I was hired because I liked cakes, or I even liked the show. You know, one of the questions I said, do you watch the show? And I could have gone, oh, I love it. But the thing is, I hadn't really watched it. You know, I was very fortunate. I sort of joined Bake Off. I got on the wave. So when everyone started to watch the Bake Off, I joined the team, and I was very lucky that I was on that ride, and I sort of left. Well, it's still going up and up, and it's still doing fantastically today. But sort of when it became like headline news, I was sort of riding that wave. But, you know, I'd have been found out really quickly. So I was like, no, you know, I haven't seen it, but I hear great things. And I think, you know, I'm not saying that that's what the reason they hired me, but I think it played into that, you know, because again, they were hiring people, you know, they were hiring a runner that they could be in a, you know, when you go into production, and particularly Bake Off, the hours are long and you're tired and it's hectic, you know, you wouldn't, it doesn't sound like, you know, the gentle cake show is grueling, but it is, you know, I was wiped after the end of each season. Everyone was. And so they're looking for, I think, people that are authentic. And, you know, when you're in the sort of the throes of it, and it's, you know, like at the bottom of the ninth, really, you're looking for authentic people. And I think back then that was sort of just done by the interview process and sort of getting to know you. Now there's a content element out of it. Okay, so if you don't if you're posting loads of videos about like something brilliant, and, you know, there's clearly a passion for the space, for media, doesn't matter if the show's about cakes, or the show's about lizards, or the show's about, you know, anything. As long as you've got that passion for that area and that project, you know, then crack on. And we did have people that came on the show that were passionate. You know, this runner I worked with, a guy called Johnny, he loved the show, and he loves baking, and he's still involved in that thing, is now like one of the top food producers, because that was his world. But that's authentically Johnny. Whereas we were sort of there because we love media, but there was a role in that huge show for us, and a very key role as well. So yeah, I think, you know, authenticity is key. So, you know, it's about finding, I think, you know, if you've got a passion for media, you're applying for media jobs, I don't think you need to then go, well, this is about news, so I need to go and do vox pops on the street. I think content's irrelevant. Passion and authenticity, I think, is what's relevant.
Totally. You can't. It's like for example, somebody going to. It's like, for example, I know nothing really about baseball, but it's like I could go and I know a lot about other sports or baseball. Then it's like me going to like a baseball team and be like, yeah, you know, you should hire me as to get in touch with your media. I know this, and this, and they're like, okay, name 3 things that we've done in the past year, in the past 10 years, probably what they say. And I would name something that happened the last 3 days. They'd be like, yeah, but what about the rest? Like, where's the, like, anybody knows about that, but how, it does come to that. You do it, and they're very quick to pick up. Like, I've noticed that as well. And just from speaking to people that have been applying for jobs and like BBC, I won't say their names, but BBC, ITV and stuff, because I don't know if they're actually still in the process of, you know, getting accepted or whatever. But anyway, there's certain people that have realized that, like, yeah, they really need to like get themselves together, in the sense of like, you're not actually going to be able to get this job if like you're going to be playing about and you're going to be lying, and you actually have to like focus on that company or that subject. And
yeah, I mean, you've got to know your stuff, but I don't think there's a line. You've got to know your stuff when you go into the room, because again, I think what that shows is, I think they're not asking that question to be like, oh, we're going to hire someone that's great at baseball. They're looking to see, this guy doesn't know and hasn't worked in baseball, but he can point to a thing that we did 5 years ago because he's gone and done his research. Again, it's about passion and authenticity. His love for media is so much that he can be his true authentic, you know, he's being authentic. And look at the passion here. He's gone and researched. So I always see it as that, you know, because, you know, there are so many, like I said, we talked about, you know, being the in-house team at Duolingo. No one, you know, and this is no disrespect to the people that work at Duolingo, I love your content, but no one decided that's what they were going to do. You know, there'll be people there that were like, I've always wanted to work in sport, I always wanted to work in this kind of media, and they found themselves here doing brilliant content, and, you know, sort of stumbling into a world that's, yeah, unknown for sure.
It's we're in like a weird social media world. It's awesome, but it's just weird to wrap your head around sometimes. But I'm totally with you in what you were saying earlier on as well, that the way it's going is just amazing. Like, it's gonna, it'll be so interesting to see where we are, like even at the end of this year, the things that are coming out. And now they're saying they're going to be putting jobs on the actual metaverse themselves, so you'll just be wearing a pair of goggles all day. You won't actually be going to work. You'll just stay in, and you could even sit in your room and do it. It's and get paid like top money from being in your house. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I mean, it's mad. I don't know what shape I never know what shape the metaverse is going to take and how we're going to interact with it. But it's definitely, we're going to be involved in it in somehow. You know, everything that starts off always looks clunky and is clunky. Case in point, you know, we talked about phones. When the first mobile phone came out, it looked clunky and big, and then it shrunk and then expanded, and now it's found its niche, and that took 20 years. I'm not saying the metaverse is going to take 20 years, but it's definitely not, you know, when people are like, oh, I'll watch that, you know, when Gymshark had that virtual meeting, I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, I'd rather have Zoom. Okay, I hear that. But what that is not the final product. Like, it's going to be, you know, way different. Think about games, man. Think about, you know, where we were with consoles. It's the movement will be so quick and so fast. So if you want to get in and understand it, dude, get in on the ground floor for sure.
Yeah, definitely. If you're smart enough to be able to work on coding and technology,
100%.
you're so. I'm definitely not, but you're definitely sorted. Um, before we get onto your Canada's place close to my heart for a few reasons, but before we get onto that, you were a comedy researcher at Video Drug
Yes.
Networks. I'm a huge comedy. I'm not naming anybody I'm a fan of, but I'm a huge, just because they end up saying like ridiculous stuff sometimes.
No, I know. Yeah, pinning your colours to a mast these days is quite difficult. No, so yeah, that was again sort of I spent 2.5 years, or maybe just 2 years on the Bake Off, and it was brilliant, and I loved every minute of it. And they helped me rise through the ranks and get to like a researcher, which is sort of a junior producer kind of level. It's all TV lingo for junior producer. They're sort of getting you to find information and embed it in the story. And the reason I left Bake Off was just I've always, my plan in my 20s or the start of my career was to go and experience everything. Again, similar to my university career, it's like, right, I'll go and do a bit of TV, and I'll go and do film, and I'll go and do digital media, or whatever opportunities I can get. So then I can go, okay, I think this is the spot where I want to be. So a natural break came in the Bake Off, and 2 years was brilliant, but like I mentioned, the burnout is real. It is a lot. Like, it's brilliant, and I couldn't recommend it enough, and I had the best time ever. But after a year and a half, 2 years, I couldn't do it anymore. And so this young digital media company called Video Jug were looking at they were sort of a little bit ahead of their time in terms of how like a Lad Bible or something, they setting up a publishing channel where they make content and then brands sponsor them. And they wanted a comedy website, and so they were looking for me to they said, do you feel comfortable coming in? And again, there's nothing in my CV and there's nothing in my show reel that speaks comedy, but they said, pitch me some comedy shows. I went away, I thought of some stuff, I pitched them, and the model was, we worked with comedians. The model I pitched and worked well was, we worked with comedians and we got them to make the comedy. We got them to make little shorts, similarly to what sort of Channel 4 do, little tiny shorts. And then we had them on their website. So I sort of ran that. So I'd run these team of comedians, some that have gone on and I've started to see on like 8 out of 10 Counselors Countdown and having full tours, and other ones that sort of parked it and left it. But some great stuff, and it was a lot of fun. So I managed them, and we get the videos in and then distribute them. So it was a lot of fun, that one. But I guess that speaking of social media, where they were very keen on using social media as a driving place to their own website, because that's where they could get the most value. And I think the mistake is, if you look at something like Lad Bible or a company I worked at later, Joe Media, they have their own websites, but they really do exist on those social platforms. And this company was using the social platforms just as promo to get onto the website, and the cross traction just wasn't working. So I think even if you spoke to the old CEO, if they had their time again, all the stuff we were doing would have been a Facebook page, and a big one. But yeah, a lot of fun, that one. It was good fun, and worked with a couple of fun people. Good.
Now, you went to Toronto.
Yes.
And which is awesome. Again, close place to my heart for a few reasons. But you went to you started off self-employed. That's a big move. Like, to start, it's a big move to be self-employed in the UK, where we're currently both from. But then to go to a whole different country and be self-employed, what was that like? That's meant to be a huge step.
Yeah, no, it was. So I my wife, now she's Canadian, we met in London. Her visa was running out. I again have similar links with Canada prior to meeting my wife, and an opportunity arose. Video Jug was sort of winding down a bit, and I thought, well, you know what, let's go do it. We're young enough. And when I went out there, I had a couple of like opportunities, but it was all on a freelance basis. So Sometimes I was working on as an assistant producer on a hockey show or rugby show, because I'd linked with the sports teams over there. But then, it was, no one knew me in that space. I mean, and Toronto is quite, it had a burgeoning, even when I was there, it grew in the 2 years I was there, from 2015 to 2017. It expanded and grew, but everyone kind of knew people. So I didn't have any ins. So, I had to take a couple of steps back in my career. I did some producing, and researching, but I also, I did some time as an art runner for commercials. And that involved me, I'd pick up a van on, say the shoot was Thursday, Friday, or no, Wednesday, Thursday. So my week would be, on Monday, I would meet the art director. She'd give me my plan. On Tuesday, I'd go to a parking, like a parking lot, and pick up a van, like a full van. I'd drive around Toronto, picking up the props for this commercial shoot for the art director. Wednesday morning, I'd deliver them to set, and we'd get them all set. Thursday, we'd shoot the thing. And then Friday, I'd drive around Toronto and drop them back off. And then, so the self-employed thing, I was just, getting my name out there. And sometimes I was a runner on an art show, and then other times I was producing, helping people produce football stuff. And it was on an ad hoc basis. So yeah, it was more, I guess, self-employed / freelance, but with my aim was just, I'll take everything and anything and everything, just so that people know who I am in this city. And again, just anything in media, I didn't have a target. Just, you want me to run around in a van picking up props? Yeah, fine. Absolutely. Let's do it.
That's the way you have to be. But then, especially 100%. When you are in another country, you do have to kind of just, take the low, because there's no, like, they'll say you're actually driven. You could have all the experience under the world, but as you're saying, nowadays it's who you are. Like, what can you bring to them versus before, them hiring a bunch of people with degrees and stuff. It doesn't really necessarily concern. It's more like, who are you actually? You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I guess also in that point, the reason, it wasn't as like a sense of pride thing. Yes, sometimes is it hard that you went from producing a whole shoot and running a team to then, being at the beck and call. Yeah, there's a bit of pride that you have to swallow that pill. But these people don't know you from Adam. You're, even it's Canada and the crossover's real. They don't know what your experiences and your references like. So you go, okay, well, let me show you. And if the only way I can show you is what you've got right now is running around picking up furniture across Toronto, then I'll do that and I'll nail it. And I'll keep getting hired back and hired back and hired back. And that money will allow me to start to look for opportunities. And then also, you can be candid with the art director, because they'll sit there and go, look, you're X and stuff, is what do you want to do? Because they normally go, do you want to get involved in art? And I go, no, not really. What I quite like doing is this. And they go, okay, great. It's not an offensive thing. They go, okay, great. Well, I'll tell you what, if I hear of something, I'll let you know. And sure enough, it opened an opportunity for me to go to the production company that I was at for most of my time in Canada.
I was just about to say that, yeah, taking it that spy, how you got into Sinking
Ship
Entertainment.
That's how I got into Sinking Ship, yeah.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. So Sinking Ship Entertainment, what was your, again, was it like production, running and things that you done there?
No, so again, it was a couple of steps down. So I started as production secretary. So it was, Sinking Ship Entertainment was a television, a kids television production company. They'd been running for several years and had lots of successful shows in Canada, and they were starting to filter into America. And they had this big show called Odd Squad, and that was airing on PBS Kids in Canada and America, and was going really well. And they had constant productions churning out. So I joined as a production secretary. So my job was, we're filming every day, mostly in a studio. They built this sort of kids awesome studio thing. And I was a production secretary, so sourcing sort of material. So there was a production team that responded to the line producer, who was in charge of all the budget. One person would be in charge of all the call sheets and getting people together. And then the production secretary would be in charge of the daily sides. So I had to make sure, we got the script from the directors the night before, and we had to make them into little mini packets for what we shoot that day, and mark them up, and then you sort of progress up and you get different roles and responsibilities up the chain. So I joined the production team, and that's really where I started, you know, that's sort of the line to producer, the you know, the sort of the production management and sort of making the thing happen that I started to craft there. So yeah, no, it was great fun. So I started as production secretary, got promoted to junior, I think it was assistant production manager, then junior production manager, and yeah, did Odd Squad, and then a show called Dino Dana, which was about a girl who, it was all like semi-educational. She sort of saw dinosaurs in her imagination and stuff, and so there's a lot of fun and constant work, and yeah, a lot of fun. But it was, again, I had to take a couple of steps down to go do that. But you know, I then found myself with a very secure job working on a kids show for a year and a half in Canada, in a foreign country. And again, it could add to my CV. You know, I've worked as a production team. And we were shooting every day. You know, Monday, Friday. It was a weekly. Every day they were shooting. You know, there was times in pre-production, but because it was a constant churning TV show, it was always in production. We did sort of seasons back to back. Because kids shows don't really tend to have an off period. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. But again, took a step back to come forward.
Yeah, you have to do that, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%.
Any job, yeah. You to get forward, usually, not all the time, but most of the time, I'd say about 95% of the time, you do have to take that little step back, less pay, to then jump forward to even more pay or more progression. It does come to that. But you then went, you came back from Canada. I take it that was because of, and you went to Dual Media, but I take it that's because, like you're saying, your wife now, you said.
Yeah, my wife now, yeah, she's Canadian.
It's because she came, it's because like she could officially get her green card. Was that to do with that? So she just had to go back type thing?
No. I mean, staying in Canada was an option for us. My wife actually got her Irish passport. She has Irish family. So we weren't even married when we came back. And we wouldn't have had to marry to stay. You know, permanent residency was offered, and there was a route to stay in Canada and keep working on that. But I just think we felt not, you know, anytime we visited, you know, we're always going to be across the two places, but we felt more at home here. You know, anytime we came back, you know, she wanted to come back. I was like, I'll come back. So we just sort of it was a very clean moment at the end of my 2-year visa. It was like, okay, well, this is a very clean, easy moment to go. We're going back to the UK and move in there. And you know, I saw the Joe Media, you know, we were sort of lining up. We were heading back in December, and we saw the Joe Media role, and I applied for it. And you know, I was doing my interviews like over Zoom and over Skype and stuff. Skype, Zoom didn't exist; it was all over Skype. And yeah, I was doing all my interviews over Skype. And sort of the funny thing about Joe, which I love, is sort of I interviewed for the job. Got the job. It was all over. And the day I landed, they asked me, you know, well, when do you land? And I said, well, I land this day. And it was a Friday. And they go, any chance you could come in? And I think it'd been a very reasonable answer to say, oh, look, you know, I've just landed back from 2 years away. Can I meet you Monday? But there was a part of me that goes, I think you should say yes here, you know, to show him. So I did. So I said, you know, we flew on the Thursday night, landed. My mum met me and my wife to be at the airport, and they went off back to Somerset, and I left, got off the plane, went into central London, and started my first day at Joe. And was in my first meeting. You know, we landed at 7 a.m, and I was in my first meeting at 10:30 that day at Joe. And again, I think that was just sort of more because, again, that's sort of me, and I had a passion for it. You know, I wasn't trying to impress or show. I was just like, well, I can do this, and I want to. So why not go there and get all my stuff, and then and be the guy that got off the plane from Canada and came straight, you know, because you can be that person. So Yeah, no, I landed and went straight to work at Joe, literally.
Do you think, I don't know if this will be true or not, but it might have been. Do you think if you hadn't done that, they might have reconsidered taking you because it'd be like, or was it,
No,
was it like, so it wasn't like, you know how you see it on the, because it sounds like the classic
no.
movie set, if you turn up this day, we're going to get you on.
Yeah, no. The job had been offered and I'd accepted.
All right, okay.
And then they sort of gauged the water, I think. It wasn't like, well, if you could start, could you start Friday? It was just, look, the role they were hiring for, they desperately needed. They had no form of production management. And I think there was a thought process by the guy that hired me, who's still a very close friend, Andy, who was like, if we could get him in for that one day, you can do all that things you need to on your first day, sign up to the payroll, get your laptop, so that Monday we can hit the ground running. And I kind of felt that tone, and I was like, yeah, all right, I'll show them that I can match that. And it didn't feel like, to me at the time, it didn't feel like too big of an ask. You know, I was in London, I could get there within a couple of hours. There might be a little jet lag, but again, you know, I walked in and I had the slack for that. They were like, you know, they sent me to lunch early with a couple of people, and then, you know, they turned to me at 3:30, 4 o'clock, and went, look, you're knackered, you haven't seen your parents, go home. So, you know, it wasn't one of those like do it or else kid. I think it was just, there was an opportunity on the table for me to show that I felt wouldn't cost a lot, to show that I'm in, like I'm bought into this, you know, what we're trying to build here, I'm in. And I think that's something good said, because it kind of set the tone. It's like, okay, this guy is it. And I was, you know, that was the Joe project. You know, my job was to build a production management arm of the entire company from scratch. You know, they hadn't hired anyone like that before. And now I sort of left it. It's a department of 5. So, you know, there was a buy-in thing, and I was like, I can do that. I don't think this costs me anything, and I can go do it.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. Good on you as well.
Well, cheers. I mean, I was a bit, you know, I'm sure in the meeting I wasn't giving it I'm sure I wasn't probably, you know, I got there, but probably wasn't giving it my best. I was probably sat in the meeting like,
But, just agreeing and be like, trying.
Yeah. I didn't know what I was agreeing to, just trying to keep my eyes open.
You ended up paying for lunch that day, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
no idea. No idea what I was buying. Yeah, 100%.
But now you're currently at Social Bull Media, but you started off self-employed. Is Social Bull Media, is that your company or?
Yeah, that's my company.
Oh, it's because it says you started off self-employed. I was like, I wonder if that's another thing to like you were ad hoc or something, but it's actual.
No.
Right,
so,
okay.
So we started Social Bull. We officially launched in January 25th of 2021. However, we all the guys that worked it, we were all working at Joe, and you know, during the pandemic there was lots of furloughing and, you know, the usual thing, but there was an opportunity for something that we always wanted to do, which was start our own production company. So, you know, we took that time on furlough and that sort of leave to sort of build Social Bull. And then Social Bull was operating in a space, but, you know, it takes to register as a director, you have to wait until the tax year starts, and et cetera, et cetera. So there was like a time change in that we had to be self-employed, but we were billing our company, if that makes any sense. Like Murray Grindon was sending an invoice to Social Bull Media and I was paying myself. So it was just the way it worked out because of moving stuff. But no, Social Bull Media, I'm one of the co-founders. Me and 3 other guys are the co-founders of Social Bull.
What kind of stuff, which is awesome, by the way, I always like hearing about like self-employed and stuff like that. What kind of stuff do you guys work on? Or I know what stuff you work on, but do you want to tell other people what?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. So Social Bull Media is a social first production company, sort of a new content breed studio. So what we really work on is branded content, and what that means for, you know, if I'm over explaining, apologies, but what that means is, you know, there'll be a commercial campaign for let's use Pepsi Max. So Pepsi Max will have a huge activation around the Champions League. They will do print advertising, they will do TV advertising, and then there's social, and it's what they do for social. And as we spoke at the start of this podcast, it's a brand new world and stuff like that. So we saw that, that production companies were sort of making things and then putting them on social. We didn't see anyone that was just a social first, ego free, thinking about the audience and the platforms production company. It was offering these services to, agencies, to brands, to football clubs alike, basically how can we best make content for socials and make it, and weaponize them. So that's how Social Ball was formed, and that's what we do. So I would say, because of our background at Joe and a couple of the other guys, used to work at Sky, as did I. And one of the founders, Scott, used to work on Soccer AM. We have a specialism in sport. I'd say about 70% of what we do is sport, but another 30% is sort of entertainment, really. And we work, as I said, we work with media agencies that sort of have clients and look to us to sort of advise them on what they should do for their social arms. We work directly with brands. They go, well, we've got this activation. What can we do? And, for socials. And then we also work with some sort of, with talent. So we've sort of identified there's a market, we think, for non-content making talent. So, socials, everyone got them at the time, but there are people on there with huge followings that don't know how to make stuff, but have a passion and want to make a project. So we work with them. One of the key things we do is Tube's Golf Life, which is a golf interview show. Tubes is from Soccer AM, so obviously we had the connection from back in the day. And Tubes had this vision, and he was implementing it first, and then we got involved and sort of streamlined it and starting to help it weaponize for social. So that's sort of the area and what Social Ball covers, really. But the first and foremost thinking we're always thinking of is we're a production company that thinks of the platform and the audience first, and we're trying to work with people to help them make that content.
Yeah, which is awesome. So say there is talent out there that is wanting to get in touch with you guys or is wanting to do. How do they go about that? Because as a lot of companies, as you'll know, they like getting tagged in their posts or tagged because obviously it's recognition. But is there a way that they can come to you and be like, look, am I not good enough? Because that's not the nice way to put it. Well, and it's not nice, but it's the truth. Am I good enough to be involved? Is my following big enough? How does someone get in contact with you?
So if someone wants to get in contact with us, I mean, sort of the usual ways, social media across all social platforms. You can follow us and send a message. We'll always respond. Also on our website, we have contact information. We have a hello@socialballmedia.co.uk, or you could find the four founders. One of the things we want to do is make ourselves presence on our platforms as well. So, we're not just a faceless company. That the company is run by Murray, Jack, Scott, and Mike, and you can get in contact with any of us, and it's pretty easy to find us that way. And then again, I would say that it's, for us, we've sort of been approached with people that have an idea, and it's never that they're not the right thing, because I tell you what, honestly, a captive audience of 5,000 people is worth way more than a disengaged audience of 500,000 people. Because people aren't, they might, the views could be higher than the 500,000, but if you've got 500,000 people that are just following a thing because they want to, sure, you get views and a few likes, but the engagement and the reaction to the content means nothing. But there's 5,000 people, if that's watched 5,000 times every time, and it's got 3,000 comments and 2,000 shares, that other page and that other person couldn't dream of that interaction. So it's never about the size of them. All that we do is go, okay, well, what's your interest? Oh, I always want to do this. And then we go, okay, well, I think it'd be X, and we help them develop their show. And genuinely, for us, it's not about numbers, it's about audience capture. I'd rather have, I think, you'd rather have a tiny room filled with listeners than an auditorium filled with people not paying attention. And that's the exact same for social. Numbers and views do not tell any they tell such a small part of the effectiveness of content and stuff. So it's never, it's always about honing the idea than necessarily honing the talent themselves.
Yeah, awesome answer as well. But it seems like you've always kind of like done what you kind of loved, like you've always kind of like followed down that path. So say there's somebody that's you know, struggling with it, or like because as you probably know people as well that do it on the side, like how they have a 9 to 5, but they spend like literally all their time trying to like develop something, but and it's not, they're not like, they know themselves, if they stop their 9 to 5 and then join on that, it'll explode, but they're scared. What would your advice be to somebody that's doing that, that is ready to take this, wants to take the step, but it's like ready to make the decision, but is very unsure because obviously, you know, uncertainty and stuff? What would you say to someone?
Well, I mean, I think it's, first of all, you know, I think everyone could sit here and sort of give like a Gary V answer of like, do it, go chase your dreams. And that is actually sort of the answer. I truly believe, you know, I've never, look, my whole mantra of getting a job is I never wanted to feel like I was working. Now, the reality is that, you know, and I own my own company and stuff like that, you know, there are things I do like tax forms and like call sheets and just sort of pitch decks and stuff like that, where, you know, it's mundane work, but the outcome is that I'm working on something that I love. So you can put up with the mundane because it's for a company and for a thing that I love. So I'm a huge advocate of like, if you do what you love, you'll never feel like you work a day in your life. Now, that being said, I think you have to be realistic about where you're at. Like, you know, doing what you love doesn't, you know, the tax man doesn't take experience, you know, the gas man doesn't take experience when the bill comes in. So my advice is always, you know, I would say if you feel ready for it and go for it, then there is no perfect time. There's never going to be a perfect time. You know, we nod about starting Sociable and when should we do it and when should we drop the sort of side freelance gigs that we had as well as Sociable, and we just had to pull the trigger. And it worked, and it worked, and we just had to go, okay, well, that's it, and this is it, and we've got to make it work. Because it also, when there's no safety net, you do work harder at it, because you've got no other option. But what I would say is, you know, if someone's like, well, look, I've got bills to pay and stuff like that, you know, I've got this thing, I really want to do it. But if they're not maybe in the spectrum, you know, if they're not maybe even in the industry, go and find a space in that industry for you that allows you to work. You know, there's so many TikTok creators that I see that are also running social media for small companies. I think this one girl called like Neve Hadkins and stuff like that, you know, I've sort of seen on TikTok. She runs socials for like a environmental recycling company, but she's also working on her brand and her platform. And then I think there are some opportunities there. You know, we talked about the running thing. It was never my dream to sort of, you know, on Bake Off, I was painting benches and taking out cakes, but it allowed me to be in that, you know, and taking out bags of cakes to bins. That's not what I signed up for. That's not where I wanted to be. But doing that stuff allowed me to be in that space, and it allowed me to grow. And you know, I did some sort of fun projects on the side, or even just sitting around and planning stuff. You know, if I don't take this career, you know, I don't meet these three guys at Joe Media, we don't start Sociable. And that's because I dipped into it. And, you know, even to this day, you know, I'm not exactly where I want to be. You know, I have my own production company, and that's always been a dream of mine. But now it's to have a very successful production company. You know, the mountain always moves. But giving yourself the best opportunity to be in that field, I think, can help. And I think that's sort of a good compromise. But, you know, I am also an advocate of like, you know, you've got to do it. You know, if you've got a passion for it, don't waste, you know, we've also talked about how quickly time has moved, and we kept going, you know, 13 years, that wasn't that long ago. You're 100% right, but 13 years goes like that. And if you've got the passion, you've got a love for it, then go for it. And there's been no better time, you know, maybe bar the Renaissance in Italy, there's been no better time to be a creative in this space. The opportunities in the facility and the opportunities and the facilities that are available to you now are crazy insane. And so if you've got the passion and you want to do it, then go for it. And then if you need to do it inch by inch, do a roadmap, find yourself a company that will allow you to outlist that artistic intent, and then you could film some stuff off the back of it. Join it, contact a football club and be like, I'll be your videographer. Then they'll pay you some wage, but then you can also do X at the same time. So yeah, that would be my advice. Go for it. And if you still need some caution, just look at the field and see if there's a space for you in that field to then be in the world and have one half in your project and one half in another.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think that, and I think that's an awesome way to end. But I do want to ask you one last question, because I know that the question does help people in terms of like, facing fear, even though fear is to some people say fear is a construct, face everything, rise. There's lots of like acronyms and things like that for them. But have you ever, I'm guessing you have, just with the way, like you said, moving to a different country and then moving production and being self-employed. So I'm guessing you might have, but have you ever had to like face your, and I don't mean phobias, so not like spiders or like,
no, yeah, of course, yeah.
But like, have you ever had to face your fears before? And if you have, how did you then how did you deal with it and then implement it into like to change the next time you had to face that fear, if that makes sense?
100%. There's so many times. I mean, there are so many times when you set out on this path, you sort of read off my CV and I'm like, wow, that's brilliant. And I'd tell me, but there was a time in Canada where there was no jobs coming in. And and the only job available to me, being that I was a door-to-door salesman for a month, selling spa packages. You sort of come down, you spend $69 buy it off me, and you can go to the spa 4 times. And I was doing that door to door because there was no work for me. And you have that moment of, oh my God, what am I doing? This is miserable, and I'm doing this for an outcome. And you're like, should I just pack this in and, go and teach? And there's nothing, that's not me being disparaging to teacher. My mum's a teacher, my wife's a teacher. Do I go and find something with a bit more of a steady career progression and path? And it's a real thing you think about. I remember when I left uni, and I was applying for those runner roles, and the next line is when's the job coming? Where is it going to be? And you don't have an answer. There's no one's taking a chance on you, and you go, oh my God, do I need to go? And I guess so I was faced with that multiple times in my career, and I imagine I will be again. I don't think it's ever going to go away. And the way I sort of dealt with it came back to the passion again. It was just like, yeah, but if you go and do that, are you truly, truly, truly going to be happy? And also, do you bet on yourself? I sort of, your worth and your value. And I was like, no, I can do this. Now I wasn't doing anything insane, like trying to be an actor or, where the odds are astronomical, but you had to sort of grit your teeth and go, no, because the other side of the fence might seem greener now, but it really isn't. Like, stay in this side of the fence. I just had to keep telling myself, keep grinding, and an opportunity will arise itself. In Canada, when I was going there, when I was first applying for jobs, when we start sociable right now, I'm constantly trying to get work and evolve us. And there are times when I definitely go, have we done the right thing here? Would it be easier if I was running a team in-house at a company that we spoke about? And potentially, but I believe in what I'm doing, and I have the passion. So I think it always comes down, yes, I felt that fear, but I think it always comes down to it's never going to go away. I think you almost sort of embrace it because it's part of that, and you sort of beat it with the passion and the desire that you have for the field that you're in. And there are good days and there are bad days, 100%. I think you just have to acknowledge it and just, also accept that the fear is a part of that, and don't, it's not, I'm not saying, it's ignore it and stuff like that. It's like, okay, yeah, there'll be times when it will be shit scary, but then there'll be other times when you're on set and you look around and you go, this is all my company that put this on. And that moment there is the reason that you deal with the fear, because if you give into it, you'll never get this one. up here. So that's sort of how I dealt with it and got through. But yeah, passion, and want to keep going.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much else I can say on that, to be honest with you. Like, it's true. You have to. At the end of the day, it's easy enough saying that. You know, as you said, you could have literally given up. Like, it would have been easy for you to come back home,
100%.
get a job and stuff like that because of your experience. But it does take a lot. It takes a lot, and it takes like a lot more willpower and stuff to then do that sort of thing. But then you're able to influence people that, like, like myself, if I was to ever go over and stuff, which is an option, but if I was to ever go over and be like, why should I do this? It's like remembering what you said and like, yeah, but you could go over there and work in I don't know, McDonald's or something like that. But if you're working on your projects and getting in touch with companies at the same time, they're going to be like, you're clearly trying your hardest to stay.
You are. And I would say that, if you go over there and you work at McDonald's, but you're working on that project, you're still the unsafe side of the fence. You're still working on the passion thing. I sold things door to door. I did some accountancy work when I first think, there were things that I did to fuel the thing that I wanted. And I still see you as that side of the thing. How many actors sit on the Conan O'Brien show and go, yeah, I was a waiter. Yeah, my first job was in telemarketing, because, we live in the real world. You've got to pay bills. But as long as you're always working on the stuff and you're always passionate about that, you're always that side of the fence and you're still working on it. And again, I don't think, from my point, there's no shame in that. I've done, they're not on my LinkedIn because my LinkedIn's drowned at the TV side. But I'll talk to anyone about the time I was working in the accountancy thing or going door-to-door sales, selling spa packages. It's just as a part of the work that I've done for Sociable as it is for now.
So yes, you probably learned stuff from that as well that you're
probably
implementing now. But yeah, I do want to I especially because of just the way you were speaking and things like that, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that were like influenced by you and hopefully will now take the initiative. That's the goal, is to help people pursue the dream job. I realized that that's quite a big word, the dream part. I kind of changed that to like do what you love every day, and it's as long as you are. I mean, I know people that work in Asda's not too far from me that love their job. Like, they sit in the checkout and they love getting to meet people. They love to be footballers, but they don't want to leave Asda because they like Asda. Literally, it could be anything from that to being, I don't know, Bill Gates or something. If that's what you want to do, then go out and work for it. Everything's kind of out of reach, but it's attainable. It takes years. That's process, but you have to enjoy the process.
100%. And if that process involves different things and different tractions, like me, painting benches on the Bake Off, or cutting up sides on a kids show, or handing out flyers at Edinburgh to kind of do things. None of those things were sort of the career path. My goal is to own my own production company, but it was a step on the journey. And like those people that work at Asda, if they love working at Asda and the football thing, if they're getting to play football on the weekend at like a semi-pro club and then working Asda and have the greatest time, they're doing it as well. They're achieving exactly what it is. I truly believe in that. Like, the minute you're unhappy somewhere, the minute your head is dipping, either be it at a place or in a field of work, I think it's time to wrap it on the head and head to another direction, because time is so quick. 10 years will go by like that, and it wouldn't have moved, and you'd have been unhappy. And we got to work for a living, so we might as well be happy. It's the thing we do the most, right? Work. So try and be happy out there as much as you can.
Yeah, exactly. And on that note, I always love to get people's social medias. The reason being is obviously, as you probably guessed, and as everybody will know as well, is that it's to promote what you're working on, but also to get in touch with people, because some people like people's stories and they're like, I really want to tell you, like, I liked your story, and you helped me and motivated you. So do you want to give us so if it's all right with you, do you want to give us your social media so we can
absolutely. So if you sort of search on most platforms, Murray Grindon, I'm quite blessed that there's only sort of one of me in the world. So at Murray Grindon is my handle on Twitter and Instagram, and also you can find me on LinkedIn, Murray Grindon. Or also for sort of what we're seeing, if you follow at Sociable Media HQ on Instagram, that's our Instagram for Sociable, my production company. Come check us out, and we respond to messages and stuff like that. That's run by me and the 3 other guys. So check out Sociable Media on Instagram and Twitter as well for sort of the work we do. But then, if you want to reach me personally, at Murray Grindon on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah, you're certainly blessed with that.
I am very lucky that it is just me. I think the only other Murray Grindons are something. I think my email is sort of my surname with a few initials, and that's because Murray Grindon at gmail.com I had, and I forgot the password to. Like, no one took it. I just couldn't get into it again. So that's the only other times that Murray Grindon is taken from me is me forgetting my password. Very lucky that way. Very lucky.
That's like me. I have Kyle Mercer at outlook.com, but Kyle Mercer on everything else is taken by this really famous country singer. And I actually DM'd him once, like years ago, and I was like, I really wish I could just be the only Kyle. And he actually messaged me back and he was like, lol. And like the message, I was like, I love it. My name, I really want that. So everybody knows that you get me on Inkylesconvo. Also, if you like me attempting to lift stuff, it's on Mr. Big Kyle, because I do everything a lot bigger than normal. I'd like to thank everybody for watching, and thank you again, Murray. I really appreciate your time. And
of course,
like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all later. Thank you.